But all in all, like, the thought of body counts is something that, while I won't say isn't useful or isn't relevant, is something that can cause quite a bit of despair to someone, because oftentimes people forget that in today's day and age, there's a lot of people sleeping around with a lot of people. Now, it's not like we should be like, oh, even though she's fucked a couple of thousand guys, it's okay. But oftentimes...
The royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
Welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man whose sickness for the thickness prevents him from skinny dipping. He is also a man who does include running his mouth to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B, and I am here to speak about men. And I know, you probably already saw it in the title, blah, 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 but this one's gonna be interesting. Just not necessarily for the main topic's reasons, because, by the title you probably already know what I'm gonna talk about, but because I wanna argue for the men in a way that I feel I haven't done too much of recently. Mostly because I do have a case of a woman who claims that men shouldn't be in certain fields, and I want to dispute that, not because I feel that should be the case, but because women feel that should be the case. And I will get to that in a little bit. Although, with that said, I do have a couple of harsh dating truths that I need to talk about in the main topic, and I do want to get to those ASAP, because I just feel like there's stuff there that I'd really want to talk about, and I don't like to be the guy that gives spoilers, but, maybe number 7 might shock you. Not that there's a number 7 though, but maybe like number 3 might shock you or some shit like that. Although, with that said, I do hope you listen all the way till the end, and should you like what it is that you're listening to, should you not like it, should you have a different form of feedback, or should you have a potential topic or a potential guest, then the DMs are always open, the social media links are in the description, and I am more than happy to check out your DMs and handle them accordingly. And should you not feel like checking the description, then you can always listen all the way till the end, because I usually mention the links to the social media, or at least the social media handles, right at the end of the episode. But all in all, with that said, I do want us to get into the mix of this episode, of which I first want to deal with the case of a lady who hopped online and asked why it is that male gynecologists work on women. And she claimed that apparently modernity has messed stuff up, or like during childbirth, women didn't have men in the room, blah blah blah. Now, I am going to let the clip play, then give my thoughts in it, because I feel like this is a very interesting discussion that, in my opinion, just teeters on the emotional over something that is purely, can I say, professional, if not factual? But then again, I could be wrong about it. But either way, let me let the clip play. So without further ado...
Am I the only one who feels that men should never be gynecologists towards women? Because make it make sense. When a woman is the most vulnerable state she can be in life, when her legs are wide open and she's giving birth to a person, a human being is being born, the person guiding her through that process, how can it be a man who has never and will never go through that process himself? Make it make sense. The gynecologists that we have today are mostly men, and even then they know it's awkward. So when it comes to that point, more often than not, what they do is that they send you a midwife to be with you, a fellow woman, to guide you through the process of giving birth. But when the check gets paid out, the gynecologist makes more. The male one, he makes more money than the female midwife. Make it make sense. Traditionally speaking, if you were giving birth, men were not allowed to be inside the room. Not even your own husband could be there with you. It was only women. And the person receiving your baby, the first person to touch your baby, would have been your mother. And that makes sense spiritually speaking, because she can speak a blessing and pray for the baby. But this modernity thing...
Okay. But this modernity thing that I believe is modern science, unfortunately, or just the fact that there's modern science and there's the fact that there's not as many women that sign up to become gynecologists as opposed to men. But anyways, let's try and debate this entire thing, because I would have wanted to handle this in a more factual way and be like, it's probably because we have more male gynecologists. But the most interesting part about this is, it's not like I even really have to say much about it. The people that actually defend the fact that we need more male gynecologists, or at least, male gynecologists are dope, is actually the women. Women in the comment sections were the ones who are like, nah, shorty, like you definitely lost it with this one. Like, male gynecologists are actually the ones to go for. And I don't say this to take a dump on female gynecologists, it's just male gynecologists tend to be the ones that are the most recommended as opposed to female ones. Now, granted, if you are a good female gynecologist, you may actually end up being recommended a lot more by women because there is some level of rarity amongst your sector or field. And the truth of it is, if it was really up to women, and I think if it was really up to like a decision of would you want a man or a woman, looking at your insides, I'm sure most women would probably choose other women because of the certain level of comfort, blah, blah, blah. But in a lot of cases, you find that most gynecologists are male because gynecology is a field of medicine, and most of the people that will probably get into medicine and try to become doctors, more so gynecologists, are going to be men. Okay? And I actually got to know about this during this scandal where there was a gynecologist that used to drug and I think sexually abuse his patients. He was called, I think he was Dr. Mugo. He was one of those quack gynecologists, got exposed on the news a couple of years back. And I can remember it became this whole discussion about male gynecologists. And I remember I heard it in a radio discussion where it's like, oh, why don't you guys go to female gynecologists instead? And my word, the number of women that were coming up and they were like, no, we prefer male gynecologists. These female ones aren't even all that great, blah, blah, blah. Like people, and by people I mean women, really came out to support the fact that male gynecologists are the best gynecologists. And the thing is, on one end you could argue, oh, female gynecologists would be better, and I totally agree. There are definitely great female gynecologists out there, but at the same time, you have to think about it not necessarily just from the sense of emotional safety or just, like being more physically comfortable and shit, but one, the level of professionalism, and two, the capabilities of the person that is going to assist you. Because if they're very capable and they're very professional, a lot of the whole, I don't know if I'll feel very safe opening up like that for someone else, kind of starts to go out the window. Because at the end of the day, you want to be assisted, and if the person that is assisting you demonstrates the fact that they're professional, a lot of that shit goes out the window. So when I heard this woman talking all of this, like, I kind of looked at it and I was like, maybe she just doesn't have much experience with gynecologists. Granted, she is female and, it's mostly women that have experiences with gynecologists. But a lot of this speak just sounds like it's an emotional tirade, not necessarily that it's informed. Then also she brings up the fact that usually when it's like delivery and like the woman is in labor, like the gyno will be there, he's male, but he'll have the midwife there to help her through it. And then when the check comes, the gyno takes the largest chunk. Like, when it comes to it, if the gyno wasn't needed, then he wouldn't have appeared there. And the gyno's consultation fee for such a thing is probably not that cheap. So by the time they're being called in, they are basically being called in for consultation or sometimes even for a possible surgery if need be. So essentially, like, you calling them means that you have to pay them that amount. Otherwise, they wouldn't be needed. You'd have the midwife. The midwife would probably make the same, if not a little bit more money. And, everyone goes home happy. But at the end of the day, I don't see why someone should be pissy because the gynecologist is male, because it sounds like she has a problem with the fact that the gynecologist is male. Like, it's not even a case of the gynecologist is being paid more. The problem with being paid more isn't the fact that it's the gynecologist, it's the fact that he's male. So at the end of it, I'm like, okay, so what's your issue? The fact that he's male or the fact that he's paid more? But all in all, the thing that made this entire argument just seem like a large stack of bull is the fact that she brought in the whole culture thing versus modernity and how there are always women there and everything. Because at the end of it, like, fine, yes, the mother would be there to, like, probably bless the kid after she's come out, or like it's come out, or he's come out. But when you think about it, with the current modernity that we have, even though we replaced the male gynos with female gynos, like, the problem would still be the same. It wouldn't be the mother there. So either way, like, I don't get what the sexism is for. And honestly, if the guy does a good job, the guy does a good job. Why the fuck do you care what's between his legs? he may not be a woman, but he does a good job, right? At the end of the day, does the rest of it really matter all that much? But anyways, I don't think this is something too big to talk about, so I'm going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. Now, I've had the whole discussion of unpopular opinions a couple of times, and while they are particularly interesting, I feel as though 2026 may have come with something that might be a little bit better, if not slightly different, but also just as entertaining. At least to me, that is. And that is the idea of the harsh reality truths. Now, this is something that has been on X for quite a bit, and people have spoken about it. It's also been on TikTok, IG, and so on and so forth. And the more I've been seeing them, the more I've been a little bit interested in doing them for relationships and or dating. Now, I happened to stumble across one on IG that seemed to speak pretty well as far as my thoughts were concerned, and now I'm going to let it play, then give my thoughts on it, because I do feel like these harsh reality truths, or these harsh truths that are being put out there, while they may not always be right, do at least present some interesting frames of thought that people should consider whenever they get into something. So let me just let the clip play, then I'll give my thoughts on it. So without further ado,
8 hard dating truths men learn too late. Women simply don't ignore men that they like. If she isn't initiating conversations or texting you back, she's not that interested. Number 2, I'm just a girl is her way of weaponizing femininity to avoid accountability while still wanting the benefits of adulthood. Move on, bro. If you have to spend money every time that you want to hang out, that's not dating, that's an invoice. Number 4, absolutely never sacrifice your peace at the expense of your respect. Don't keep repeating yourself, just remove yourself. Number 5, you'll absolutely never get the same level of love and respect from a woman who's not attracted to you. The quickest way to tell if she's attracted to you is by how much physical contact she initiates. Number 6, neglecting your needs or dismissing your feelings is also a form of abuse. It's not always physically yelling and cursing, bro. Number 7, I want you to stop apologizing and taking fault for shit that you didn't do. She's an adult, and she is more than capable of expressing her emotions. And lastly, absolutely never take back a woman who has left you for another man. You'll end up tolerating all type of disrespect. But I hope this video helps. Peace.
Okay. Particularly interesting dating truths over there. And honestly, as far as the 8 are concerned, I think I agree with just about all of them. I think except maybe for the first one. When I think of the first one, I believe, yes, it is true, but if you guys are already talking, like if you guys know each other, if you're like friends or something of the sort, then yes, it definitely does make sense that, you know, if a girl really likes you, she won't ignore you. But if y'all don't know each other, there's women out here that will wait for you to hit on them till kingdom fucking come. Like, babes out here will be wanting a guy with everything they've got, but they'll never go and talk to the guy. They'll just look at the guy and wish that the guy looks their way and comes and hits on them. Yet they've never really done anything to signal interest in that particular dude, except them deciding maybe they'll dress better and try to make themselves look better. And then all of a sudden it's like they think that version of peacocking will work. But, you know, then again, you know, sometimes it works, oftentimes it doesn't. But with that said, like, I personally feel like this guy didn't miss in just about every single one of his points. A lot of them, in my opinion, were very in the relationship type. And I believe that as far as being in a relationship is concerned, at least for the points that did affect that, they were pretty spot on. But now, when it came to the dating ones, I also do agree, but I feel like the dating ones probably are the ones that maybe a lot of people will throw a shit ton of just very subjective opinion on. So I sat and I thought about it for a bit, and I figured, you know what, let me give some of my harsh dating truths as well, so that I can try to give a slightly more balanced mix and, you know, try and educate some people as far as dating truths are concerned. Now, I will give a disclaimer. These ones are specific to men, or at least they are for men. And while I don't want the ladies to stop listening to this one, I will tell you that I will do one for women maybe in the next 1 to 2 episodes, just so that I can balance stuff out, because I know there's a lot of women that listen to this podcast, and, you know, Like, I might as well give them a couple of harsh dating truths as well. Plus, also, just trying to balance the equation, because if I did the dating tips for men and for women, I think I can give some harsh reality truths for men and for women as well. Now, with that said, the other disclaimer is that whenever I give the truth, I will explain why the truth exists or why I believe it is a truth. And as always, if you disagree, you can always reach out in the comments, or at least you can reach out via DMs and tell me that I'm chatting a bunch of shit. But I will talk about, the feedback loop a lot later at the end of the episode. So these are the harsh dating truths for men, and they're 5 plus a bonus. So here is the first one that I will give. Dating is a resource-intensive exercise, and if you don't have the resources, maybe you should hold back on dating. Now, let me explain this a little bit better. When it comes to dating, as a man, I feel like it's kind of self-explanatory at this point. It is a resource-intensive thing to do. Now, by resource-intensive, I don't mean that you're going and you're paying a shit ton of money for a date or anything of that sort, or like you have to do something grandiose. No. But if you are in the market and you are dating and you're going to attempt to date a couple of different people, then it means that you'll be going out on multiple dates. Now, most people would hear resource intensive and think that it's just the money. And, there's definitely guys that are like, the money isn't the problem. And this is why I'll say that it goes beyond the money. By resource intensive, I mean, you are not only utilizing the resource that is money, you are also utilizing the resource that is time. You are also utilizing the resource that is brain power, that is emotional connection. If you do end up developing one, it is the fact that, you will probably have to invest in some pretty good conversation skills if you guys don't gel together from the first drop. Like, there's quite a bit as far as resource intensity goes when it comes to dating that I don't think women would get. And only men would, because as a guy, you're busy thinking about planning for where you'd go for a date, what it is that you guys would do together, and whether you have the time to do it or what time you would choose to do that. Now, of course, if you decide to throw in a bunch of extra creativity in there, that requires a little bit of brain power. And it's not like you have to be like this incredibly innovative person as far as going to dates or going on dates is concerned. But when you kind of look at it, in as much as, yes, there's someone that's going to be like, oh, you don't need to put too much thought. It's not like you want to take 5 girls out on 5 dates to the same places. Otherwise, the employees will know that. And you might end up being looked at like you're a player, and you don't know if any one of those employees might tell another babe, hey, girl to girl, he's taken 3 other babes here or some shit like that. And I believe that this is for fairly obvious reasons, that now you will be looked at as a player and not a serious potential long-term dating partner, and that just fucks up the entire thing for everyone. Also, when you look at the amount of time that you have to dedicate towards dating, like, yes, I know it's just dinner and maybe a couple of drinks or just a fun activity for a few hours. But there are some guys that tend to be very, very busy or work very regular hours, meaning that it can actually end up being a little bit hard for you to get into the dating market. And, by the time you meet someone and you want to start going out on dates, even though you might be interested in the person, sometimes it can be a little bit hard. And, sometimes those extra hours might be better served somewhere else. Not that dating isn't bad, but sometimes you just don't have that much time as a guy. So there's your first harsh dating truth, or first harsh truth in terms of dating. Now, the second one is relationships are like an active investment, and you should be very cognizant of that. Now, I know the first 2 have made it seem as though I'm talking about money. And the thing is, it's not just about the money. There is time that has to be put in there. There is emotional investment that is put in there. There is listening to the other person. There is the fact that if you guys are dating, or at least if you guys are in a relationship and you've gone past the whole, you guys are casually dating and everything, like, you now have to be more cognizant of the other person's desires, whether they're in the same place as you or not. You have to factor in their wants and needs. You also have to start factoring in anniversaries, birthdays and whatnot, what it is that they like to eat, what it is that they may not like to eat. Not that it's bad or hard to do or anything, but there's that. There's also investing the money in spending time together, and just the time that you guys can spend together, and what it is that the person likes to do, and whether it appeals to you or not. Like, there's a lot of investing that you have to do in a relationship for it to work out. And while it isn't bad investing or all that hard for some people, it is definitely an investment. And the more you're cognizant of that, the more your approach to dating, or at least to getting into a relationship, will refine itself into something that you can say whether you want to do or not. If you're not interested in putting in a bunch of investment, then you probably shouldn't be trying to get into a relationship. If you are okay with making that investment, then by all means, go all in. Now, the next harsh reality that is there, and this one might piss off some guys, but this is for your benefit, is that you should stop thinking about her body counts unless you want to be shocked and or sad. And I say this because there's a lot of guys that still talk about, oh, does she have a high body count? Oh, don't go for a babe with a high body count. And the thing is, like, you'll never really know her body count for sure, because at the end of the day, someone can choose to lie about their body count, and whether it's true, whether it's false, you kind of just have to take them at their word. Not unless if they exposed it to someone else and that person confirms it for you, which will rarely ever happen. But all in all, like, the thought of body counts is something that, while I won't say isn't useful or isn't relevant, is something that can cause quite a bit of despair to someone, because oftentimes people forget that in today's day and age, there's a lot of people sleeping around with a lot of people. Now, it's not like we should be like, oh, even though she's fucked a couple of thousand guys, it's okay. But oftentimes, people tend to center in on the fact that someone might have a high or a low body count and might try to write them off. Yet the truth of the matter is that maybe it's not what they think, or maybe it didn't happen the way they think it did. And the way I kind of came to this realization was a couple of years back. I was having a discussion with Wes. And by Wes, I mean Wesley Jeff, the guy that I had an interview with a couple of episodes ago towards the end of last year. And I remember I was telling him about this supposed study which had stated that a woman that has slept with 10 plus men before she gets married usually has I think it's like an 80% chance that the marriage will fail within the first 10 years. Like, that was a stat that I had seen, and I'd been telling him about it. And I can remember after I gave him that stat, the next thing that he told me was that that's not exactly a feasible thing in today's day and age. Maybe back in the day you could say that, but in today's day and age, if that's the case, then like all of our marriages are doomed. Because he was even explaining how, like, there's a lot of women that are just doing it with other people out here, and it's not like they're hoeing around. Like, racking up 10 bodies for a babe actually isn't all that hard. Now, I'm not saying that, babes who aren't at 10 should be racking up 10, but like, you find a babe who's in her 20s, ends up dating one or two guys, that's already like 2 bodies. And in the midst of all of that has like 3-4 situationships, that's already at 6. Then you look at her trying to date one guy, and then, like, they go through the whole dating process, they have a bit of a situationship for a bit, they'll end up banging. This happens like 2-3 more times, and then she ends up dating one other guy, and then that doesn't work out because maybe the guy has a problem. Then, like, you're not even accounting for any possibility of a whole phase somewhere along the line. Let's assume that she doesn't have one, and then she ends up trying to date like another 1 to 2 guys, and stuff doesn't work out. Mind you, all of these are guys that she supposedly liked, not guys who like paid for pussy or like she's selling it or anything of the sort, or she's hoed herself out. But there are some instances where she might meet a guy and she's super interested in dude, and dude, just is in it for the bang, and that's it, and nothing materializes. By the time this babe is getting to the guy that she wants to settle down with, there's a pretty high likelihood that that number has crossed 10. And not unless if you're a virgin as a dude, of which if you are, you definitely have the rights to ask for your babe to be a virgin as well, even though the chances of that happening are, pretty slim. Like, you busy fussing about someone's body count might probably just be a recipe for disaster for you, because if some babes told you the actual body count, you would be absolutely blown away. There's definitely other babes that would have much less, but at the end of the day, whatever number they tell you could be true or false, you just have to take it at face value. because she can tell you that she's slept with 8, but she's slept with 32 in reality. There's others who claim to have slept with 10, but they've probably slept with 100. There's some that will tell you that they've slept with 4 and they've genuinely slept with 4. And then there's others who usually reset their body counts every year, which is quite a number of babes, which I find very interesting and just odd. But all in all, like, whatever number she gives you, if she is going to give you a number, you can't entirely say is going to be 100% accurate or true. So why bother asking for it or looking for it in the first place? I would much rather you go and look for certain character traits in the person as opposed to trying to figure out how many people they've slept with, because at the end of the day, the more you think about it, the more it'll probably hurt you. Alright? And with that said, let me move on to our harsh reality truth number 4, which is women aren't project cars. You can't salvage and repurpose anyone or any one of them, so let them start by doing it by themselves first before you step in. And by me saying that, I mean, stop trying to save these hoes, okay? Now, not every baby's a hoe, and it's not like every hoe doesn't need saving, but at the end of the day, change is something that has to start from the person who is trying to change than from someone who is trying to initiate that change for them. And no matter what possibilities you may see in that babe, no matter how much you might want the babe, if she came from the streets and you were trying to change her from being in the streets and trying to make her a housewife, there's a pretty good chance she'll just go back to the streets. So start by trying to deal with the people that are already out of the streets, and if the person that you're interested in doesn't want to change by themselves first, then there's no need for you to go and try and make that active investment, yet it'll just come to bite you in the ass. And to explain this better, I will refer to the book of Galatians chapter 4 verse 12, which states, and I quote, "For the streets she hath come, and to the streets she shall return. Thus I saith unto you, she is for the streets." End quote. And with that said, I will move it on to our last harsh reality truth, but not the least, which says, and I quote, "The cost of pulling a 10 is the same cost as pulling a 2. Stop holding back when it comes to the hot ones and go for it." Now, what I mean by this is just hit on a babe if you're interested in them. Like, if you would classify the babe as a 4, a 5, or a 6, if you're interested in them, go hit on them. If you're interested in a 10, go hit on her. There's this issue that people have, and it's not necessarily just guys, it goes both beyond it, and it even includes women, where it's like whenever you meet someone or encounter someone of a perceived higher value, you will usually try to be more calculated and might be a little bit more scared to make an approach or make a risky move. I will tell you for a fact, as a guy, you should probably make that move if you're a dude and you're trying to hit on a fine babe. Because at the end of the day, babes will all want care, affection, intimacy, and so on and so forth. So the desires of the 10 are probably the same desires of the 2. So you might as well go and hit on the shorty. And to kind of cap things off, instead of giving y'all a conclusion, I will hit y'all with a bonus harsh truth, which is whether she wants you or she doesn't, you'll probably know. If she demands that you put in an investment of some sort, you're probably the stability option and not the one that she actually loves. Reason being, when people are in love, and this cuts across the genders, their standards usually go out the window. Like, everyone has standards until they're in love. Then at that point, they will usually start to chip off at those standards and be like, you know what, but I still care about this person, and whatever standards I had, it's not like that bad. Like, they still meet some of them, right? And as such, you find that oftentimes they will usually throw their standards out the window for the person that they do genuinely love. And with all of that said, maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the breaktimepod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.